special guest. He was one of the original eyewitnesses to Mothman back in 1966. Without further ado, put your hands together for Mr. Tom Urey.
That's what happens when you get old. 45 years ago, I figured most of you wasn't even born back then. That's my first experience with the bird. That's what I call it. I'd like to elaborate just for a second. You know, we lost Miss Scarberry this year. How many of you were here last year when I spoke? Good. Glad you're back. I told everybody I wasn't prepared last year. I'm worse prepared this year. I told everybody my wife had just been diagnosed with terminal lung cancer, and I asked for your prayers. She held on till July 7th. She finally passed away. But thanks to your prayers and your cards, and it really meant a lot to us. The main thing I'm going to talk about, well, anybody here hasn't heard my story before? Okay, I'll go over it. I didn't live in Point Pleasant at that time. I lived in Clarksburg, West Virginia, about 150 miles from here. I'd come down for Thanksgiving dinner with my parents. I'd heard the story about Mothman, man with wings and everything, and I didn't disbelieve it, but I'm one of those persons, I gotta see it before I do believe something. So, Friday morning, November 25th, 1966, I was heading back to Clarksburg. I'd called the assistant manager and told him to open up the store at 9 o'clock, and I'd be there about noon. I got about 6 miles north of town and caught something out of the corner of my eye. I thought it was a helicopter coming over the trees from the riverbank about a quarter of a mile away. It was a bird. Started circling my car, 500 feet roughly up in the air. Every circle it would make, it would get lower. It followed me for about 2 miles, and I'm speeding up all the time, driving a convertible, and that thing was huge. And the last pass it made in front of my car, I got a pretty good idea from where the crossbar on the telephone pole, it was at least 12 to 15 foot wingspan. It wasn't no sandhill crane, believe me. I've never refuted the stories that I've heard about a man with wings. I always thought maybe people were seeing the bird at night. Now, I know Miss Scarberry, who just died in April, she took a lot of harassment over the years. I was lucky I didn't live here at that time. I got by pretty easy on everything. I had a few rough times. You know, people, hey, you didn't see this, and all this. It's, like I said, it's been 45 years. I still remember it pretty vividly. It wasn't a sandhill crane. It was a bird. It looked more like a thunderbird than anything else I'd seen. I still try to talk to different eyewitnesses and see what their stories are. I can't say anybody's making up the truth or making up a story. I don't know. I didn't see what they saw, a man with wings. But to me, the bird with a 15-foot wingspan, that was pretty spooky. And nobody still knows the answers. Now, I'm going to be kind of short today. I'm worn out, not feeling real good, but one thing you're going to have to start watching from now on. Miss Scarberry was the original sighter, and there's going to be people coming out of the woodwork, and they can say anything they want, and who's going to refute their words? It'd be speakers or eyewitnesses and everything, and I'll be 70 in a couple of weeks. I don't know how many years I'm going to be around, hopefully another 30 or 40. but, nah, 30 would be enough. But, you're gonna see people, say they saw this and they saw that just for the notoriety. You don't get any money out of it. My goodness, I haven't made enough money off the Mothman thing to pay my rent for a month, you know. And, I do it because I enjoy meeting new people all the time. And really, you're out of town. Is there any local people in here? I don't see any hands. See, the locals don't give a hoot. You people spend your time and your money, and you're all very considerate. Oh, I've had a couple rascals, you know, saying, the whole town got together to make up this story so they can bring money into the town. We can't even decide whether the rain, it's going to rain today or sun's shining or what, you know. I see these other people down there one time a year. The rest of the time, they live their lives. We don't have meetings on what we're going to talk about. We talk about whatever we want to. But every one of you come in from out of town, I appreciate it. You're good people. I know some of y'all better than I do people live right here in town. I'll never do, one thing I want to get clear with everybody, I'll never do another TV documentary. I've done 27 of them. They know how to manipulate the tapes. Makes it sound like you're saying something you didn't say. I'll give you a good for instance. And this is almost all of them. Now, there's been some good ones. But anymore, I don't know if they're running out of material or just making a movie because they know something with Mothman is going to sell something. Last year, I did a thing for Monster Quest on History Channel. Spent 6 hours down here at the Low Hotel. I got one bottle of water all the time I was there. Didn't want to ask him for another one. Never got a nibble for it, never asked for it. I never have asked for any remuneration on doing these things. I do it because I want to get the word out, tell the truth as well as I know it. The only thing after 6 hours of interviews, when it comes out, the only thing I said was 12 to 15 foot wingspan, and then they cut to Miss Scarberry, who'd seen the man with wings. Made it sound like I saw a man with wings, which I never did. I mean, it's standard procedure with them. They don't care about what you have to say or what. They just want to make their documentaries or whatever you want to call them. Most authors are pretty legitimate, but you can't don't write a book based on a lot of facts in John Keel's book. Now, I found a lot of errors in it, especially about what he wrote about what I said. I never met the man in 2003, 30-some years after the sighting. So I don't know whether I'm glad he wrote the book, because that eventually, with the movie, put Point Pleasant on the map. And this, I mean, it is good for the business here in town. Like I said, never got to meet all you new people, you know, or out-of-towners. But I really appreciate you all coming. Now I'm going to cut this short because I don't feel real good. I just got a call from a neighbor of mine. But anybody have any questions and answer? I'll answer any question. I'm the only one, as far as I know, out of the eyewitnesses, 150 starting out. Most of them never come forward. That's offered to take a polygraph test on what I saw. I'm not saying the other people aren't telling the truth, but I have nothing to hide. So anybody have a question? Will you come right up here so I can hear you a little bit better? I'll move up here. Yeah, how you doing, bud? First man I met when we got downtown today.
Love this man. When you first saw the bird, I can understand how frightened he was, and all that sort of what it was. But the bottom line is, as he was driving, did the bird just fly away?
No, when I first saw it, I was driving up Route 62. I think most of you've been up the TNT area. Okay, the tree line along the highway wasn't as high as what it is now. You can see clear over the river where the trees were over there. I'm driving up the road about 15 to 8 in the morning, as light as it is out now. And I saw something out of the corner of my eye. And when I first glanced, I thought it was a helicopter coming up over the trees, over the riverbank, but approximately a quarter of a mile away. And when I saw it, I said, damn, that's a bird. And it started making big circles, 400, 500, 600 feet above my car. You know how birds make circles. But every time it'd make a circle, it would get lower. Now I'm driving a convertible. And kind of spooky. And the last pass it made, of course I could only see it. Now people's asked me about the head of the bird. It was always flying away from me, you know, going counterclockwise. And really what fascinated me was the wingspan. And the way I got a fairly good, accurate thing on the wingspan was when it made its last pass. Now see, I could only see half of its rotation, looking out the top of the windshield, going about 75 miles an hour too. Well, last time it came by, there was a telephone pole up at the graveyard, about 6 miles out of town, Kirkland Gardens, with a crossbar on it. And it came down like that, in front of that, or behind the crossbar, and I could see about this much wing hanging out both sides of the crossbar. So I estimate the crossbar was what, 4 or 5 foot? So you add that 5 foot on each end, you got 15 feet, it might have been short. I mean, I didn't have a tape measure with me and I wasn't about to stop the car. But when it passed the telephone pole, it made a up like this and down and once up, and it was already that fast it went over to back to the riverbank. And believe me, it was spooky. And people asked me if I was scared. I think I was more apprehensive than scared. I mean, I knew once it circled about 3 or 4 times, I didn't think it was going to come through the top of my car. But still, you never know. Anybody can have bad luck, it was me. But never say you're never going to get scared. I'd come back from my second tour in Vietnam, 101st Airborne. Nothing scared me back there in those days. That's a lie. Bird had me scared a little bit. But I went on up to Mason, West Virginia, a town 13 miles up the road. And there was a service station at the foot of the bridge. And I called the sheriff and he asked me if I'd come back down. And I said, well, I'm going to be late for work anyway. So I knew him real well and came down and told the story. And Mary Hire was there from the newspaper. I think most of you probably read John Keel's book. And she was one of the newspaper lady. I used to deliver papers for her when I was 11, 12 years old. So when I came back to town a couple weeks later to come down and see my mom and dad and everything, I went down to the newspaper. I said, Mary, I ought to shoot you. Because she put in the original newspaper article that it came from the right side of the road. I knew what she was doing. She was correlating it with the TNT area, where it came from the left side of the road, from the riverbank. And I said, you were just doing that to correlate it with the TNT area. She said, oh, don't worry about it, Tom. She said, this will all but blow over in a week or 2. 45 years later, we're still. So she wasn't good on timing.